What is Meta You? It is the ability to go beyond your limitations and beyond your current career and create the life and the business that you really want to create.
So, the next guest is one of my all-time freaking favorite women. But I thought about who am I going to have as a female. She was the first person I text, and she's absolutely amazing. I have had a privilege of working with her closely. Some of the masterminds I've been part of. She was voted #1 coach by Inman News, whatnot. So since I've had the privilege of working with her so much, I actually am going to have Justin have a conversation with her because I want him to be able to connect with Julie. So I'm going to bring Julie on, and I'm going to bring Justin on. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
I love your spot. I told Justin, I'm like, dude, this is a privilege for you because she is full of energy and super cool. So I love it.
We'll see. We'll see what Justin thinks.
He's going to love you. There he is. Okay, I'm popping off for a second. So good to see you.
Bye, Spring. She's going to spring on out of here. Get it?
Julie Youngblood, literally the best name in real estate. Love the name. I'm sure that's part of your success. But you are the real deal. When we were putting this roster together of top speakers in the country, top coaches in the country, Spring told me I only want badasses, and you were at the first. You were the first name on the list. So you run your own team in Nevada. You're a head coach at Metrics, which I've been a part of, which is extraordinary on all aspects of the coaching front. You've actually not just been one of the top coaches at KW. For a while, you were the top coach at KW. So you have an amazing resume. But more than that, I know some of our agents personally coach with you. You have a great way of connecting to people where they're at and bringing them to that next level. So we couldn't be happier that you're here. And Julie, if you want to give maybe a little intro to who you are from your perspective, that would be amazing.
You're making me blush, and I appreciate you saying all that nice stuff. I have been coaching for a few years. I've only ever sold real estate. It's all I've ever done right out of high school. So I'm kind of a goofball in that sense, or I just don't know any better. And I'm excited to be here. I'm not sure what else you want me to say about myself. I don't really do that really well.
Great. So I think what you're best at, and these are your own words, a strategy for engineering the right business and plan and processes that will take you to where you want to go. So
Justin, I'm super jacked that we're going to talk about that today.
So if you could dive into that with an emphasis on Q4, we got 6 weeks left. It's the holiday season. It's Thanksgiving. And we all know a lot of the industry has let their foot off the gas. They're still closing deals, but they're not prospecting. They're not doing those things that matter. So from that standpoint, with your skill set, kind of connect it to the end of the year and starting 2021 right.
Okay, cool. So there's two things I definitely want to cover today, and you have led me just like a horse to water, and I'm going to drink to this very, very first one. And it's this whole concept of seasonality. And there are two mindsets around seasonality. Some people are like, don't buy into it. And other people are like, yes, it really does exist. So I want you to know that when I talk about seasonality, I don't mean, pumpkins are out, realtors are disappearing, although that does tend to happen. What I'm really talking about are the ebbs and flows of your personal business. And by the way, it is okay to acknowledge there are ebbs and flows in your own personal business, right? Like, for example, in a pre-COVID world, Justin, it was not uncommon for my husband and I to take all of December off and go travel the world. He's from Germany, and we would just go spend time in Europe. Yeah. And, that meant that typically our Q1, because we're still in production, our Q1 was not necessarily our strongest. Now, it didn't mean that we got out of the business. We were just very aware of our own ebbs and flows in our business based on the way that we chose to attack our business. Yeah. Right? And so I say that because when we're going to talk about goal setting a little bit today and business planning, and this relates, right, as far as like the efficiency and the effectiveness in which we need to hit our daily activities. When I think it's important to know that the game you're playing, right? So most of the time when we're goal setting and we're breaking down activities, we're taking the year, and let's just be frank, we're either dividing it by 12 or we're dividing it by 25, right, for the quarters.
Yeah.
And Justin, if your goal, I'm just gonna throw this out there, if your goal was to do 100 deals next year, that means if you were following the kind of conventional wisdom around goal setting and breaking down, that would mean you'd have to do 25 deals in your first quarter to be on track, right?
Correct.
Now, what I know is that most of us don't do it in chunks exactly like that. As a matter of fact, I know my personal business, we close about 17% of our annual production in Q1. Now imagine if my goal was 100, I closed 17 and I needed to get to 25. Just from a human perspective, like, let's be real, most of us are humans. Some of you might be robots. But I'm behind the 8 ball already, right? Like, I'm already not winning. Now, real estate agents, we're kind of interesting people. I believe that we are overly optimistic about the future, and we also suffer from short-term memory loss.
Agreed. And I think that's across all industries, but I think more so in real estate.
More so in real estate, like, you can have a really bad week on activities and then like slay it one day and you think, don't worry, it's November and I've never lead generated once, but I'm going to kill it this year. I'm still going to hit my goal. Only real estate agents do that. So my point here is that when I'm talking about goal setting and seasonality, and I'll bring this back to Q4 and activities, but what I'm talking about is getting really clear on the game that you're playing so that you can mentally keep your mind frame in the right space. So typically, if you don't know your own seasonality, and a lot of people don't, go back over 2 years and track it, right? You can figure your own out. Now, if you're newer and you haven't been around for 2 years, that's okay too. I have exciting news. I track this stuff all over the country, so I can give you some general averages. Ready? I'd write this down. So on average, across the country, in the first quarter, an agent will close roughly 10% of their annual production.
I think that's probably shocking to most people, what you just said.
Well, if you think about it, right, we're talking Q4. You just said it, right? People are taking their foot off the gas. I didn't make this up, guys. The numbers just prove it out. Like, it is a 90-day cycle.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing all the things you need to do, it makes sense that 10% in Q1.
Yes.
Now, I think it's 10% in Q1, even if you do all the right things in Q4. Just be aware of the game you're playing. Imagine my goal was 100, again, because this is simple math for me, and I closed 10 deals in my first quarter. How am I feeling about my overall goal if my expectation was 25?
You're psychologically out of the game.
Totally, right? And so you're out because you don't know the game you're playing.
Yeah.
So you actually will probably take your foot off the gas even more so at that point, which is dangerous. So I'm saying this because I want people to keep their head in the game, and which means you got to know what you're playing. So 10% in Q1 is about what we see across the country. Now it gets really exciting in Q2 because it jumps up to 35%.
Yes.
Now that is enough of a jump for some people to think that they've really made it and they've come back. It gets even more exciting.
Memory loss. We're going to do this every quarter.
Hold the fort, sister, because you know what? In Q3, it's also 35%. 35%, right? And so if you're mathing this with me, that means in Q4, which is where we are now, you'll do roughly 20%. Right? So look at your history, look at what your ebbs and flows or seasonality are, and then start to get really serious around it. Now, I like to kind of tie this all in, because if you think about it, Justin, Q3 and Q2, that's 70% of an annual production is done in a 6-month time frame. Yeah. That's why, guys, in September and October, what comes out? New BMWs, bigger houses, Gucci bags.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then if you bookend it, right, if you really look at Q4 happens, slows down to 20%, you're like, oh, that's okay. The holidays, we kind of sell ourselves on that whole bit. Yeah. And then God willing, what happens after Q4? A brand new year, we roll into Q1.
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician, but that tells me that I'm going to do roughly 30% of my annual production in a 6-month time frame. If I've been living this 70% in 6 months lifestyle, and now I crash into this is why people get out of the business.
Yes.
Justin, April 15th is 15 days into Q2. And what is April 15th known for?
I'm not sure.
We pay our taxes on April 15th.
Got it.
Yeah. It's a tax day. You probably pay quarterly, but it's tax day. Taxes are due, guys. And that is why you see real estate agents broke, because they don't plan for taxes. They spend their Q1 begging people to do deals with them, complaining about the real estate market, blaming it on Thanksgiving, COVID, and the holidays, just so they can pay their taxes because they didn't do their quarterlies. Then come April, May, June, they're high on the hog again, and we're back in that silly cycle. So I say that because if you're aware of it, you can make better business decisions.
Know the game that you're in. I love the way you frame that. So if you now know the game that you're in, Julie, how do you take advantage of that?
Yeah, so here's the deal. Here's the hardest part for us as salespeople. The results, while they vary, the efforts must be consistent, right? Day to day throughout the year. You've got to do 100% of the efforts to get 10% of what you think the result should be in Q1. 10% is your 100%, right?
Yes.
That's the hardest part, is that when you think it's getting easier, if you don't know your own seasonality and you're going to live that 70% 6 months, you may forget what got you there. So it's 100% of the efforts every day to get these results may vary. You've heard that before? Yeah, that's you. That's us.
So what happens, Julie, if you don't understand the game you're in, okay? And for an agent that's giving 100%, they're still only going to get that 10% in the first quarter. What happens to the agent that legitimately is letting off the gas and is not giving 100% effort on those activities that we know are going to produce 60, 90 days out?
You mean they're making a conscious decision to do that? Or
Well,
they're getting caught up in their own success.
Unconscious, but bottom line, we know this, that agents, whether we believe in seasonality or not, are not doing the activities right now that are going to matter in Q1. So,
yeah, I think you've got to really break down what your job is. Like if I worked at Denny's and I showed up, Denny's is a restaurant. Do you guys have that up there?
You have plenty of Denny's.
Perfect. So if I work at Denny's and I show up and my job is to, wipe down the salt and pepper shakers and the syrups, right? Like I'm pretty clear on that. And so my question is, and I know if I don't do that, at some point someone's going to find out and I'll get fired and I'll lose my $5 an hour job. Well, I think that the challenge that most real estate agents have is we get into real estate for the freedom and the money, take advantage of the freedom, and we get out because we didn't make the money, and then we blame real estate. And so I think what you've got to really do is tie these activities into a daily schedule. And it sounds silly, right? Like, duh, but you guys aren't doing it, right? I know when I show up to work today, I got to practice my scripts. If I don't, I'm just choosing not to make any money. I also know I've got to talk to 27 people a day about real estate. Justin, what other job on the planet can you talk to strangers about something you love and are passionate about and make a multiple six-figure income for 2 hours a day?
I honestly cannot think of one, Julie.
You can't. Yeah. And so it's like, if you really boil it down to the stupid, really, you can work your butt off for 3 hours a day between your practice, your lead gen, and your follow-up and make a multiple six-figure income. There's no reason that you shouldn't be working 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I think you have to get a relationship with how the activities are little tiny deposits into that big 1099 at the end of the year. You have to tie it together, which I think is where you can get really crazy and learn how much a no earns you.
Yeah.
Right? I know every time someone says no, it's cool, there's $17.12.
Yeah.
Now you only get to cash that check when you finally get a yes.
Yes.
Right? And that's where most people will give up. So I think it's a connection between the big picture and the today, which by the way is really hard for people. We're not wired that way. Right? Yeah. It's called a positive, uncertain future. And if you told me if I did A, B, and C, I could go make $1 million, well, quite frankly, I'm happy making 500. Why do I need to go make $1 million and get all uncomfortable? Right? Positive, uncertain future. So you've got to chunk it down to the day and you got to make it hurt.
What do you mean by make it hurt, Julie?
Yeah, that's the second thing I want to talk about. So everybody, you guys all know how to write this business plan to succeed, right? We're good at it. You know what October is, right, Justin?
Let's hear it.
It's National Realtors Business Planning for the Next Year month.
I think we had 4 or 5 workshops on goal setting.
Oh, of course, right? Because it's very popular to do. And by golly, as real estate professionals, we set goals. We write great business plans, and then we spray them with our favorite perfume. We put them in our drawer, and we never think about it again. And then we wonder why it's not working.
Perfume, but I'll take your word for it.
Axe spray.
You know me so well.
So a couple of years ago, this is probably about 10 years ago, I was meeting with a mentor, and he introduced this concept to me called the business plan to fail. So it's going to get a little heavy, and I know I only have 13 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to bang through this, okay? So I had a great plan to succeed. By the way, it was a lot more money than I had ever made, and I was pretty excited about it, and I knew exactly what I had to do every day, and guess what? I had this goal before and not reached it.
Absolutely.
Because quite frankly, the money I was making it was pretty good. And if I'm playing the comparison game, which that's just called competition, right? I was doing better than most people in my office.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why we have top-down reports and we talk about how much money we make all the time because we want to win. It's who we are. We can't help it. And so he said, Julie, we're going to write a business plan to fail. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds icky and gross, but let me walk you through it. And so the plan to fail, or the goal, is really not a goal. It's a failed dream. Right? So if I said, Justin, you want to make, I'm just going to use 100K again, because most people have never made that. And that's what their very first big goal is 100,000. Justin, what does it mean if you don't make 100,000? In other words, your failed dream isn't, well, I just didn't make 100K, right? I need you to think and dig deep and tell me, what does the 100K mean? What does it do? There is somebody in your life that said, Justin, I believe in you, and I think you're going to be a great real estate agent. And I'm going to work a little bit extra, honey, so that you can focus on this new career. I'm going to cook more dinners, babe, so that you can focus on this career. I'm going to make sure on Saturday we don't see you anymore, babe, because I'm going to watch the kids and you're going to focus on building this career. Somebody's invested in you.
Yes.
Right? I had a loving husband when I went through my toughest financial year. He wasn't my husband at the time. He was my boyfriend. And my biggest motivator wasn't to go make multiple six figures. It was to make sure that, because he had taken such good care of us and he did everything he could to my lifestyle never changed, because Eric, he picked up the slack, right? It was like he picked up the slack for me and my kids, but he had kids, meanwhile, living in Atlanta, that we couldn't afford for him to go see.
Wow.
So my failed dream was, Julie, if you don't show up and do this plan to succeed, you're choosing for Eric not to know his kids. That's your choice, and you can change that. I had the power to change it. And so it sounds gross, right? But the truth was, I hadn't hit the goal yet until I made my current situation so disgusting, I had to move away from it. I had to move away from the pain.
This actually resonates with me at such a deep level.
Good.
Like, it just hits home. Like, yes, you need leverage on both sides, and real leverage, not just surface level leverage that, I won't be able to pay my bills, or we won't be able to go on that vacation. But what is that real pain point that's going to get you to drive forward even when it's difficult?
Right. Like, you know what? The truth is, like, I could make $75,000 a year and my kids will be fine. So my kids can't be the reason that I want to go make 150. Right? And be okay with that. But what I couldn't live with was my boyfriend, who was supporting me as I rebuilt my entire business. I couldn't be the reason that he didn't know his kids in the long term. I couldn't do that. And that excited and energized and kept me straight way more than making $300,000. Right? So that's the failed dream. Now we got to get clearer on it, because guess what? If you know what it is, but you have traps, we all do, right? I call them hurdles. We've all set goals and we've fallen short. So I want you to write down 3 things that pop up in your life, in your mind, in your world, in your heart, that have stopped you from achieving your goals. You're going to acknowledge your hurdles, and they're different for everybody. Okay? And this is it's an inside job, Justin. What I mean is, don't blame your wife. Don't blame your kids, right? It's an inside job.
Yeah.
So I'll just give you an example. One that I see with a lot of real estate agents is procrastination. Write it down. I procrastinate. This is one of my biggest hurdles. I'm overly optimistic about the future. I always think I can make it up. I sell myself on I can make it up. That's a huge hurdle. Another one, like this was one for me, self-sabotage, right? Right when I get close to like the big shebang, it's like, how do I ruin this? Like, I don't deserve this. And so I sabotage. Get clear on what your hurdles are.
How did you become aware of that, Julie?
Well, because I sat down in a room and I cried my eyes out for like a day. Yeah. As I thought about all of these big goals that I had set that I didn't get to. And I had to really dig in. Like, when you get close, why did you stop? And it really came back to not feeling like I deserved it. It really came back to a self-esteem issue.
That's my biggest one. That's by far. And when you do some self-reflection and some digging and some analyzation of your past and why you fell short, for me, it always comes down to feeling unworthy of that goal.
Right. Which is crazy if you think about it, because you did the work.
Yeah.
And yet your psyche or whatever goes on in here, which is a mystery to me most of the time, you're going to convince yourself that you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
You would tell anybody else, go for it. You've done the work. You deserve it. So it's just an interesting concept, right? So identify your 3 hurdles, because I promise you, when you set big goals that you've never done before, they're going to show up. You might as well just be aware of them.
And spend some time on it too. Real hurdles, not the hurdles that your real estate coach thinks you should say, but like, what are your real internal hurdles that have stopped you your entire life?
Exactly. Like, you can go back to early in life, right? Like, you auditioned to be the cheer captain and you didn't make it, so you just never auditioned again. What happened there? Yeah. Right? Or something you really, really wanted, and maybe one of your friends said, yeah, that's stupid. So why did you, like, what is that? Is there an external influence that you let impact your goals and your dreams? Like, what gets in the way? Like I said, Justin, this should take some time. Yes. It should. And now, for each one of those hurdles, I like to build out a plan. For me, I call them my yoinkers. I need to get yoinked out of that frame of mind. It's not, I haven't come up with a sexier word for it. So
I'm taking notes right now. I'm going to steal it from you.
I just call it my yoinkers. Okay. You need between 3 and 5 yoinkers per hurdle. Okay. What does that mean? I'll give you an example. It's crazy, because when you write down procrastination, if that is a big one of yours, you'll recognize when you're doing it. You'll recognize when you're doing it, and now you've got a game plan to get out, right? So a yoinker for me is look at my vision board. Because quite frankly, I can't look at my vision board and say, yeah, Naya, Cole, Utah, we just bought a cabin in Utah, savings account, travel, all of that stuff. Yeah, you're not worth it. I think I'm going to continue procrastinating today. Like, you just can't do it, right? Or I call my coach, or I take a walk around the building. Or I read that failed dream and I imagine myself calling that person and telling them that I chose my own insecurities over providing and honoring their commitment to me. So what are your yoinkers? Because you're going to go there. You might as well have a plan of action to get out of it.
Let's live in reality and know, no matter how much coaching and how much training we're going to have, we're still going to go to that place. So do you have a strategy or a way out?
Yeah. And it's just about, it's an awareness piece, right? Like, I don't want you to build this plan so that you can be depressed. I want you to build it because at the end of every single day, you've got one question you get to answer. Did I follow my plan to succeed, or did I follow my plan to fail? And if you're aware of the plan to fail, you can identify it now. Previously, it was just, well, I'll make it up tomorrow. Yeah. Now you're making a conscious decision to do better, to do more. And you're not going to win every day, and that's okay. You just gotta be on track most of the time. Yeah. So for me, that's way more motivating than let's go make $100,000 this year.
It's way more motivating, but also to hear it from someone that lives it and believes it. It's like coming from this deeper part of you, Julie. That's probably why you're such an incredible coach, because we all know, the coaches out there teach similar stuff, but I think you're coming from a deeper and more powerful place. And I really connected to it. I don't see a business plan to fail as something negative. I see it as something as like a driving force that you can connect to.
Yeah, I think that if you really want to supercharge this, do it. And then you hang both those plans up right next to each other. And every morning, because I know everybody here is a real estate professional that practices their scripts every single morning, I think you read them both out loud. Yeah. Right? And you make your choice then. And then you check back in at the end of the day and you say, man, which one did I live today?
Yeah.
And then if you want to really beat yourself up, I have had clients do this because I'm kind of mean.
Okay.
Not the first time, but if they're a repeat offender of not living the plan to succeed, then I've had them call their mom. I've had them call their spouse, because even though no one's making you do that every day, you make that call. They're just not hearing it.
Wow. The call is being made anyways.
It's being made anyways.
So why don't you just physically make the call?
Yeah. I mean, if someone said, Justin, every day you don't do what you say you were going to do. By the way, this was your plan. You said you were going to do it.
Yeah.
Every day that you don't live in integrity, you get to call the people and let them know that you chose whatever it was on the bottom part of that paper, whatever those failed strategies are. You get to go own those with those people and let them know that their sacrifice wasn't more important than you feeling comfortable in your insecurities. So,
Julie, this has been empowering. This is a lot deeper than I thought it was going to go. But what's cool about it is I believe you. That's like so refreshing that you're saying these words: a business plan to fail, know the game that you're in, ebbs and flows, yoinkers, or whatever you. I feel like you hit it, all the fundamentals of what it takes to accomplish your goals, to crush Q4, but you came from a much deeper place, and I really appreciate that. Julie, what would be your message to the agents that are watching? You've been coaching agents, realistically, I think you got in the business since you were 19 years old. You've been crushed it in this industry. You've coached the best of the best. What would be your message to agents that are looking to take advantage of these next 6 weeks and start the year right?
I would say you've got to go hard. You've got to be willing to get totally out of your comfort zone. Know that a no is the absolute pathway to a yes. Don't own the no's, right? And I think one of my favorite sayings is you don't matter until you matter in real estate. Yeah. And so that's why you can't own it. So get in front of enough people every day until you find the one where you matter. Just go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not sexy. It's just go.
What if it is sexy? I think it's incredibly sexy.
It's not sexy.
That gumption.
The oldest piece of technology in real estate is the good old fashioned cell phone. Or before then it was just a regular, just pick it up. Just talk to human beings. Yeah. That's it. And go hard and do more than anybody else will ever do until you leave it all out there on the floor. And you're like, did I do everything I possibly could to nail Q4 so that Q1 is on fire? If you can say you did that, then good for you. But you got to go.
Yeah. Julie, thank you for your words. Thank you for your powerful energy. How can people find you if they want to connect to you?
Well, I'm on the face webs. I mean, who isn't? And Julie Youngblood. And then I'm also on Instagram as Julie Youngblood. And I think that's about it. Is that what you want? You want my email address?
That's perfect. We'll put all of your information in the MetaU Mastermind so anybody can connect to you. But I know our agents, some of them personally coach with you. I know Spring sends a ton of people your way. We have all the faith and trust in you in the world. And I can see why Spring thinks you're a badass, because you internally are a badass. I love it.
Well, you know the saying, Justin, game, recognize game.
Oh, that's the only reason I can see it.
Thank you guys for having me. I super appreciate it.
Thanks, Julie. Take care. Appreciate you.